Hello and welcome to another Tyrrell's Classic Workshop. I present the Ford Capri 280, commonly known as the Ford Capri 280 Brooklands. But that was not how the car left the factory. That was not its name. It was since added because of the colour, Brooklands green. But anyway, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. We have here a optimal example of the Ford Capri 280. 2.8 litre V6 engine. The Ford Capri was a massive success for its manufacturers. It was a copy and paste from our cousins across the pond. They had the Ford Falcon, which was a very dreary family saloon, and they made it considerably more sexy by putting a very rakish 2+2 either coupe, fastback or convertible body on the original underframe. It was unibody, no separate chassis, but the underframe was, and the sort of underpinnings, the suspension, brakes, etc. were common from the Falcon to the Mustang. And the Mustang grew arms and legs and became a phenomenal success in the US. Then we go to the UK, and Ford brought out the Cortina, which again was fantastically successful in the 1960s. If memory serves, it was the first ever car to have face-level eyeball ventilation. I suspect there isn't a car made today without face-level ventilation, probably an eyeball vent that you can twist and turn and open and close with a knob in the middle. It all started with the Ford Cortina, to the best of my memory. And then the Ford marketed it as the Capri, the spin-off from the Ford Cortina, the car that you always promised yourself. And the underpinnings were Ford Cortina, but again, a very, very nicely styled body shell. On the earlier cars, I covered a Mark I Capri 3000 GT XLR about 3 and a bit years ago. We're going to the other end of the spectrum now, right at the very end of Capri production. So Ford had taken the Cortina, they'd put this fantastically stylish body on it in 1969. Then in 1974-ish, the Capri 2 came out, which was same unibody, but different outer paneling. It was a hatchback instead of a booted car. And again, it was a phenomenal success. And I remember very much at our local dealers at Bowman's in Wallasey on the Wirral, my hometown, they got a Capri 3-litre Ghia in, one of the first Capri 2s. And the interior was truly beautiful. It was very classy. They'd got the whole thing color coordinated. Even the dashboard was painted interior color. So you had either light gray, beige, brown, and I think black. And they started life as a black crash panel dashboard, and they sprayed them with some sort of vinyl lacquer or coating, which actually was extremely convincing. However, that didn't last very long. A year or two later, they went back to the black dashboard, either for cost reasons or they had problems with the coating coming off under warranty or whatever. But some of the specialness of the Capri Ghia had gone. But at that time, they used Ford's trusty Essex V6 3-litre, which was a horrifically heavy engine. But it did the job. It was a slogger. It was reliable. If the engine overheated drastically, the valve gear on the engine, the camshaft, was driven by a gear on another gear on the crankshaft. So the engine rotated clockwise if you look at it from that direction, but the valve gear actually worked anti-clockwise. Problem was, if the engine did overheat, the fibre gear, it was made of nylon fibre, started to degenerate, and before you knew it, you were stuck by the side of the road. This did not happen overnight, I have to say. It took quite a few miles for this to manifest itself, but happen it did. Then this engine came along, the development of the Essex V6, or an engine that ran alongside it in Germany. The Essex V6 was made in Essex, Dagenham, hence the name. And this was the Cologne V6, which was Ford Germany's sort of alternative. It was lighter and it was a bit stronger in terms of structural integrity of the cylinder block I'm talking about, not necessarily the mechanical components, but it was, again, it was not Ford's finest hour in terms of engine design. It was adequate, this engine, the Cologne V6. It sounded good. It was reasonably sturdy, but you had to change the oil. You had to observe the oil changes regularly on it because the valve gear at the top of the engine, it's a push rod engine, so it's got a cam in the middle of the V, which pushes the push rods up to the valves on either bank, each bank having 3 cylinders, being a V6. You again had that gear on the front of the engine, which was driven by a crankshaft gear, but they did beef that up, so that was more reliable. But the oil feed on the engine to the valve gear at the top of the engine, the tappets, etc., and the rockers, was driven through the camshaft bearings. So the cam had 4 bearings, 1 at the front, 2, 3, and 4, 1 at the back, number 4. And what happened is the oil pressure got round the bearing of the 2 and 3 bearings in the middle of the cam, worked its way up a bolt hole, and then was distributed along the front to the back of the tappets, of the rockers, to lubricate them and keep them quiet. It worked and it didn't because they could carbon up the feed from the bearings to the head. And also, once the cam bearings started to wear, as they did, what happened was you lost the oil pressure between the camshaft and its housing, the bearing, and the oil wasn't able to travel up to the top as much as it could or should do. The other thing to bear in mind is that this had what's called Siamese ports on it, this engine. So a V6 would normally have 3 inlet ports, 1 serving each cylinder, and 3 outlet ports cast into the head to go to some sort of header or collector or exhaust manifold with a 3-into-1 type system. This doesn't. It has what's called Siamese ports, which means that instead of having 3 outlet ports for gas flow, 2 of the ports actually meld into 1. So you end up with 2 outlet ports on each cylinder head, 1 serving 2 cylinders, 1 serving 1. Gas flow suffers, and you get a bit of what's called a hot spot in the cylinder head as well, because you've got 2 lots of exhaust gases fighting over going through one tube, essentially, out of the cylinder head. And then you have a manifold with 2 inlets going into 1 instead of the correct 3. So one of the reasons why Ford did this was because they wanted to make it so that the V4 version of this engine was actually quite similar to the V6. It's all to do with logistics and economies of scale in terms of production sizes, etc. But having said all that negativity, actually this isn't a bad engine. If the oil is changed on it regularly, if it's looked after, then it's quite a nice mill to be driving behind. Then we come to this car in particular. So this is a Capri 280, 2.8 engine, Cagetronic injection, but this car has only done 5,500 miles from new. It is virtually a new car that's 39 years old. 1987, Ford were planning to build 500 of these at the end of production as the Capri 280, this special edition, which they never called Brooklands officially, to the best of my knowledge, but it, as I say, became known as Brooklands because of the colour, Brooklands green, this stunning dark turquoise, very dark aquamarine, greeny blue metallic. This particular car is just about 100% original. It's never had any restoration work, and it is in staggering condition. The interior is, to all intents and purposes, like new. The paintwork is fantastic, never been touched. All these decals are the original ones from the factory. And what we're doing with this is an appraisal. Again, these situations are always very tricky. What does one do in terms of replacing things or actually items that may just need a visual refurbishment, but which are otherwise okay? We've taken the wheels off. We're starting to do an appraisal on this. We will, rather than, I mean, there are brake calipers available for these cars new, but we're actually going to for example, refurbish the original calipers. We've got a company that does that. They do lovely work on classic Ferrari and Lamborghini brakes for us, Aston Martin, Jaguar, Mercedes-Benz, Porsche. They do all these. Their job is to refurbish brakes, the infrastructure, the hydraulics. So we're going to have these refurbished. Even the flexi hoses are the original factory flexi hoses from 1987 with Ford still stenciled on them. I mean, it would be wonderful to find a set of new old stock 40-year-old brake flexi hoses with Ford on them, but if we fit those to the car, they're going to become a natural born failure because we're pressing 40-year-old rubber components into service. So we have to be so careful. We've got some brake drums from a supplier, but again, we're not happy because they don't have the original Ford embossing cast into them. And the owner of this wants perfection. He wants this car, a bit like the Mondeo ST220 that we're doing. The owner of this wants it sort of brought to that level, really. So we can do wonders with most of it, but some of it we're going to have to either replace or find a workaround. We're going to have to wait and see what components we can get and what we can't, what we have to refurbish, what we have to make, do and mend, and everybody would have a different view on this. Some people would say, well, I don't want it to drive, I just want it to look wonderful, so make everything brand new and not fit for purpose, if you like, over-restore it to that extent. Some people would just leave it a bit alone. Things like the front shock absorbers are the original Motorcraft units, Motorcraft being Ford's parts brand name at the time. Do we refurbish those if we can find somebody to do it accurately, repaint them in the original exact shade of blue? I mean, this is the level of detail that we have to potentially drill down to. But the basics of the car are excellent. We are going to obtain and fit an original Motorcraft oil filter. This is one of the things that we will do. The engine itself is starting and running, and I'll start it in a moment and we can have a listen to it. It's very, very good, actually. The engine sounds very pleasing, as one would expect for 5,500 miles. But I'm not entirely happy with the engine. I think with my musical ear, I can pick up a couple of things that are going on in there which are easily sortable. And again, we haven't changed the oil on this, so we don't know how old the engine oil is. But there's just a couple of, it won't be camshaft bearing wear, as I've already talked about. That will not be an issue on this car at this mileage and use. But I wonder if the tappets need adjusting, the valve clearances. We need to flush the engine before we fill it with some decent oil again. These things, it's just a process of seeing, but I'd like the top end of the engine, the rockers and the valve gear to be just a little quieter than it is now. I couldn't say how many of these I've worked on over the years. They were great cars. I remember going to check over a Ferrari 512 Berlinetta Boxer for a customer. We drove down to the south of England in his Capri 2.8i. It was the earlier version of this. And there were four of us, his two sons, him and me, in this Capri 2.8. Now, I was the smallest of the four of us. So it was four reasonably sized blokes squeezed into this Capri. But it was a good drive. It got us there and back, no problem. We had to unwrap ourselves and unfold ourselves when we got to our destination. But it was a good car for covering the miles in. I love this sort of job because it's such a wonderful canvas to work from. It really is a wonderful canvas and immensely satisfying to finish. So I'm going to just look at a couple of things close up now. Well, let's just have a little look at the back suspension on this. Ford Motorcraft Blue shock absorber. We don't even need to discuss the body shell because it is absolutely first class, as you'd expect. I mean, this car has been stored in the correct conditions, and that wheel arch profile inside there where it joins the inner wing is absolute perfection, as one would expect. But Things like this leaf spring here, this is very old technology, cart springs. It was very much on the wane, on the decrease during the late 80s because technology had moved on. The Germans were bringing in multi-link rear suspension. The Porsche 928 had the Weissach rear axle, as it was called in the 70s. But of course, it was not at this price point, nowhere near it. So Ford soldiered on with this. And this was why this was very much a run-out model in 1987. But it worked. You had, the live rear axle, this supported the axle. You had a limited slip differential. This was just a 130 mile an hour car, and it could put the power down. They were known for being tricky at the back end if you started to play with the power, but that's part of the fun, surely. So these are all the original brake parts, the original brake linings, still got the original stenciling on there. The wheel cylinder is original as well. We'll actually, even though this is very good, the rubber seals will have taken a set on the bores inside and picked up on them. As soon as you start using them, there's a very high risk they will tear. I mean, it's just a very good place to start. This is an original brake drum, which James has been cleaning up, and it's got the original specification on the outside of it, the minimum, because you could actually grind them out on the inside to resurface them, and there was a particular tolerance for that. Because the car's done such a low mileage, we just need to clean the drums up and treat them. But yeah, it's going to be a lovely, lovely, satisfying restoration, this. I'll just have a look at the engine now. Well, we come to the heart of the machine. This Cologne V6 engine, which for all my lambasting about its various design flaws, is still a great engine, actually, in the real world. I'm going to start it up now and just explain why I think we can improve on this and make it better. So we'll start it, make it burst into life. And it sounds exactly as it should, but I'm hoping the mic can pick this up. There's a tiny little bit of tappet noise from the top of the engine. And I want that to go. This isn't what hydraulic lifters, as it's called, like American engines had. This is adjustable rockers on one shaft there for those 3 cylinders and one there, coming up from the cam in the middle that I was talking about. But yeah, I just think we can make that a little smoother and a little quieter. You don't want the tappets too tight. There has to be a clearance. Otherwise, the valves, the exhaust valves burn out and they don't seat properly. But it sounds great, but not great enough. It's got to be perfect at this level. I'd be very happy if we can quieten that down, and I think we can. Well, something I regularly talk about on the channel is the tactile experience of classic cars. And that can be sounds, it can be the way something works, even the way a switch operates. I mean, I think back to the 1980s when BMW went through a phase with their 3, 5 and 7 series, and 6 series, all of them actually, where you had the indicator stalk that worked beautifully. It was so precise. Even a Rolls-Royce and Bentley indicator stalk felt woefully under-engineered by comparison. Just things like that. And one thing that takes me straight back to the 70s and 80s is the way the door opens and closes. This door handle was used on the Aston Martin Lagonda. It was used on various other cars. But I'm just going to open this door and close it, and the noise can only be a Ford Capri. I'll do that again. That little ping afterwards. It sings to me. Things like that. How can you get that on a 21st century car, electric car? I'll just put that out there. Well, as ever with cars like this, everything tells the story. And here we have all the original information in perfect condition. I mean, these plastic folders were not made to last at all. They started to unglue at the edges. That one's just going there slightly, where they've been welded, plastic welded. But even so, Ford Capri, your operating guide. There you go. A guide to Ford dealers in the UK, all who, of course, have mechanics standing outside the door, waiting with bated breath to service your Capri 280 for you. But Ford Car Security, my goodness me. This was the era when they had anything but we won't dwell on that too much. Local radio VHF, FM station guide. There you go, for when you're driving, doing a road trip around the UK. And yeah, just absolutely beautiful. There we are. All in perfect condition. Just lovely. Well, there we are. It's all to play for. We'll see how this unravels after we've done our full assessment. But in the meantime, please remember to subscribe. It is important. And thanks for watching, and we'll be back with something else very soon.